Welcome back to the show. Most of our listeners today are designers working on hospitals, senior living, or other healing spaces. We keep hearing the same complaint. We want everything bright and open, but then acoustics shows up and ruins the mood. People say visual openness and quiet are enemies. Why does it feel like that?
I wouldn't call them enemies, but they definitely pull in opposite directions if you don't design carefully. Visually, hospitals want light, openness, and a sense of reassurance. Families should feel, I can see staff, I'm not abandoned. Staff want to scan the unit quickly and know who needs help. That's all about clear sightlines and open space. But acoustically, most of those moves are trouble. The very things that feel open and airy to the eyes, big volumes, hard shiny surfaces, long clear views, often mean lots of reflections and very little sound control. In other words, it's easy to build a space that is visually calm, but actually a loud echo machine.
Let's make that concrete. On a typical inpatient floor, what does visual openness actually look like in the design?
Modern hospitals almost all want staff to literally see patients and families from the nurse's station. That push comes from very real safety and care needs. Nurses need to catch early signs that a patient might fall, self-harm, or start pulling out lines and tubes. Families feel more at ease when they can tell staff are nearby and reachable, not hidden somewhere behind walls. So the design response tends to be pretty consistent. Open nurses' stations, low counters instead of tall barriers, some transparent or semi-open partitions, fairly large vision panels and doors, and corridors where you can stand at one end and visually scan almost the whole wing. From a visual point of view, that's a big win. Staff get clear, eyes on the unit. Families see activity and feel reassured, and leaders feel like the unit looks modern and open. The space reads as safe and welcoming.
Okay, so that's the view for the eyes. What happens for the ears in that same layout?
Now we flip perspectives. An open station means staff conversations spill straight into corridors and rooms. Low counters give almost no acoustic separation. Vision panels and glass keep the line of sight, but they also let sound pass with very little resistance. Hard ceilings and floors bounce noise right back instead of absorbing it. And that long, straight corridor, acoustically, it's a bowling lane for noise. Once the sound starts rolling, footsteps, carts, alarms, small talk, it keeps traveling further than most people expect. So visually open often ends up meaning acoustically open unless you deliberately separate the two.
And the design team is stuck between all these forces: patient safety, staff workflows, leadership wanting a hotel-like image. It's understandable that people end up blaming acoustics, like, if only the acoustic consultant didn't keep saying no.
Exactly. And then, when budgets tighten, guess what gets value engineered out? The quiet bits. Quiet ceiling systems, better door hardware, partitions with more mass, all the boring things that actually protect patients' sleep and staff focus. It's not that leadership doesn't care about quiet, it's that they don't see the trade-off clearly. Acoustics gets treated as a nice-to-have decoration instead of a safety tool.
So when you say visual openness doesn't have to equal acoustic openness, what does that actually look like on a plan? How do we decouple the two?
Let's start with patient rooms. Acoustically, we'd love solid, well-sealed enclosures, proper walls, decent doors, good seals. That's how you prevent every corridor conversation from becoming a private room soundtrack. Visually, staff still need to check in quickly, so we can. Keep the solid wall and door construction. Add a controlled vision panel in the door or side wall, and give patients a blind or curtain so they can choose privacy. Staff still get the safety benefits of eyes on the patient, but sound doesn't get a free pass in both directions. We're saying, be open with your view, not with your noise.
What about the nurse's station? That's usually the social and acoustic center of the unit.
Right. That's the unit's brain. and often the loudest spot. Completely enclosing it is rarely realistic or desirable, but you can give it an acoustic frame without turning it into a bunker. For example, add an acoustic ceiling cloud right above the station to catch conversations. Soften the back wall with acoustic panels or shelving instead of bare gypsum. And carve out a couple of small side alcoves so noisy activities don't all happen in the main opening. Visually, the station can still read as open and approachable, staff visible, families can find someone to talk to. Acoustically, you've created a controlled pocket, not a loudspeaker blasting the whole corridor.
A lot of healing space designers worry that once you start talking about mass and absorption, spaces will feel heavy and defensive. Where does aesthetics come back in?
That's actually where design is crucial. Acoustics doesn't have to look like a compromise. If you know you need solidity, you can ask, how do I make that solidity feel warm and protective instead of hard and institutional? For example, a solid door can have a calm wood veneer, soft color, and integrated artwork instead of screaming, service door. A sidewall that's doing the acoustic work can also carry a beautiful mural or a gentle nature-inspired pattern that patients see when doors are open. An acoustic ceiling cloud over the nurse's station can be thin, with a soft outline and a halo of warm light, so it reads as a designed feature instead of a random patch of tiles. You're using mass and absorption as part of the healing language, just like you use light, color, and texture. Good acoustics becomes one of the ways the space says, "You're safe here."
Let's go back to corridors for a moment. Designers love that one-point perspective hero shot. A long, straight corridor, rhythmic doors, light at the end. What happens to sound in that kind of space?
Sound loves that composition too. A long, straight, hard-lined corridor is a perfect tunnel for noise. Footsteps, wheels, casual conversations, they all travel down the line with very little loss. To the ear, it's a continuous channel. But you don't have to abandon clarity. You can keep the general readability while breaking the sound path into segments. For example, introduce small shifts or gentle bends instead of a perfectly straight shot. Use changes in ceiling height or acoustic clouds to create chapters along the corridor. And place small alcoves with absorption where activity naturally clusters, like charting spots, family waiting, or med pickup. Now the corridor becomes a series of short scenes instead of one endless echo channel. The eye still understands the direction. The ear gets a break.
Some hospitals are experimenting with small decentralized charting stations near patient rooms. Do those help with this balance?
They can, if they're designed thoughtfully. A tiny desk jammed in the corridor with no acoustic treatment just moves the noise closer to patient doors. But if you recess that station a little, give it a soft back wall, maybe a small ceiling feature, you create a place for quiet work that doesn't broadcast to the whole floor. Again, the pattern is the same. Every time you open something up for the eyes, make one small counter move for the ears. One move for view, one move for sound. If you draw that rhythm into your plan early, acoustics stops being the enemy and becomes part of how the unit works well.
Before we wrap up, what's one thing you wish hospital leaders understood about this openness versus quiet issue?
I wish leadership could see that every openness decision has a sound price tag. When they push for more glass, more volume, more wow moments, they should also ask, where are we paying that back acoustically? If they treat acoustics as optional decoration, it will get cut whenever budgets tighten, and patients and staff pay the price later in sleep, stress, and burnout. On the other hand, when they understand the trade-offs, they're much more willing to protect the quiet parts. Better ceilings over critical areas, doors that actually close and seal, small layout moves that keep noise away from beds. Those are not luxuries. They're part of safe care.
And what about for designers specifically? What's the one thing you want them to walk away with from this episode?
I'd say this. Visual openness and acoustic control are not enemies. Your job as a designer is to be the translator between what the eyes want to see and what the ears can live with. Every time you draw an opening for view, draw one small move for sound. If you keep that rhythm in mind, you can design spaces that are both watchable and sleepable. And in a hospital, that's the real definition of healing.